Hi, I'm Max Rodriguez, publisher of QBR, the Black Book Review, and founder of the Harlem Book Fair. Today, we're speaking with author Tina Smith Brown, author of Fish and Grits, a book of fiction. It's a Philadelphia story. We'll be with her in a second. I want to share with you that Fish and Grits is an exceptional book. So exceptional, in fact, that in launching Open Hand Press, QBR and Harlem Book Fair's print imprint, I selected Fish and Grits as the launch book of the publishing company. And I'd like you to meet Tina. We're going to spend a few moments talking about the book and what it is that drove me, literally drove me to publish this book, and why I think that this is really a book that will fit into the African American canon. It's an amazing story. Welcome, Tina.
Hi, Max.
How are you? Yeah,
How
how
are
you?
you?
Good, good, good. So Tina and I, we met at a seminar at a workshop uh, for a celebration of Black writing in Philadelphia, sponsored by uh, Lorraine Carey and the
Art
Arts
Sanctuary.
Sanctuary. The Arts Sanctuary. In that session, we had writers from Philadelphia come and send us read and submit their manuscripts, and some did, and others just came in and brought their manuscript. Tina was one of those, and I was surprised really at the story. The story is emotional, it's moving, um, it is our history. Um, it 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 speaks to our women. It is a hero story, all by a young 16-year-old. Is that right?
She's younger than that when the story actually starts, but by the time it ends, she's a little past it.
Okay, but I'm talking too much. So why don't you go ahead and tell us the story of Fish and Grits?
Fish and Grits is a story, a book that I actually wrote. Um, it was my response to some of the African American fiction that was coming out. And I wanted to hear a story about the African American community, especially my community. I grew up in the projects, I grew up in North Philadelphia, and it has a rhythm to it, it has a beat to them. It's bad things, of course, that happen, but it was a lot of terrific things. And a lot of the books that I was reading concentrated more on the bad things, the drug dealing, murder, stuff like that. And I wanted to just talk about the neighborhood, the neighbors, the people who came to your rescue when you really needed it, but also the tragedies that happened. And I also wanted to talk about a little bit of Philadelphia history. I really enjoy sprinkling history into any kind of fiction that I write. So I thought it was a great opportunity to write this kind of novel, and I'm extremely proud of it. I really am, because it turned out exactly the way I wanted it to. I wanted it to be um, funny and sad and powerful, but allows the reader to actually come into the story and become one of the characters in the story. And so I hope I achieved that goal or came close to it.
So tell us who are the characters?
Okay, well, the main character is actually, or the person who's actually narrating the book is the younger sister. It's two sisters and three boys, and she's the younger sister, and she narrates throughout the book. But the person that she's talking about is the oldest sister, whose name is Kayla, and Kayla is actually the heroine of the story. She is the person who actually has to come to the rescue of her younger sisters and brothers when her father is killed, and then her mother is on drugs. So she actually has to step in and become the hero of the book. But unlike a lot of other novels, Kayla faces life by looking at the way that they are going to escape is through education and through sticking together, working together as a family always. So she never, even though they're living in this place that's the concrete jungle, which is what I call it, she never gives up hope that one day that they'll get out.
So
And then
the concrete jungle, you say, where that has a place. It's
as Fair,
where is that? Where is that in Philadelphia?
Fair Hill Projects in North Philadelphia, which is actually where I grew up. A lot of people ask me, "Well, is this your story?" It's where I grew up. It's my neighborhood. Some of the characters remind me of people that I grew up with, but it's not my personal story.
So tell us more. At 14 years old, Kayla is in
Yes,
charge of the household. Her parents are gone. Her mother and father are gone. And how does a 14-year-old manage five siblings?
not easily, not easily, but you know what? For Kayla, it's not an impossible task. It's not really extremely hard for her because even though she had parents that were supposedly in the home, she was always the parent to those kids from the day that they came. She was really always the person who protected them, looked out for them, make sure that they were fed. She was really always the parent. And people may think, oh, that's unrealistic. That's not unrealistic, not at all. In this situation, not at all. In growing up in the inner city, there's a lot of young ladies right now that's doing the exact same thing at younger ages. That's actually responsible for their siblings and responsible for bringing them up. Kayla happens to be extremely intelligent, so she has that on her side, and that makes it a little bit more sensible in her being able to do that. It makes it a little bit more logical because you realize that this is not a regular teenager. This is an extremely smart young lady.
What drew me to the story was, having read many books. This is a coming of age story. It's a universal coming of age story. Everybody knows a Kayla, has a Kayla in their family or knows of a Kayla. Everyone knows the dysfunction in this family or knows of the dysfunction, is touched somehow by what this family experienced. Um, I keep saying that it's an amazing story. I'll tell you all of it. There were times when I laughed out loud. And the measure of a good book for me is when the story can make me laugh out loud, not chuckle, not shake my head. Yeah, that's true, but laugh out loud. But more so, it made me cry a number of times. Now that's between us, everybody, because all right, that's between us. But I tell you that it's true. Tell us a little bit more about the story. Before you do, I'm sorry. Before you do, look, I've read some great coming of age stories. I've read great books. If Beale Street Could Speak, uh, um, Invisible Man, Black Boy. Um, even Coldest Winter Ever. Just books that had this Howard Street. If this book has that same kind of power, this is the kind of book that you will say to someone, "Have you read this?" So, Tina, tell us more.
So, well, I don't want to tell you the whole story because it's definitely a lot of little surprises in there. But I bring in the second half of the book, I bring in a character that I absolutely love and just fell in love with. And I do that. This character is actually an uncle who shows up out of nowhere and to rescue them. But I do that because I really wanted to explain that even when we're doing things on our own, sometimes we all need help. And Kayla really was at a point where she really needed some help. She could pull it off, but not to the way she needed to get them out. She needed an extra hand. She needed, more importantly, she needed somebody to love and care for.
You took the words right out of my mouth, because in spite of all the challenges and really the horror of it all, this is a love story. This is a
It is.
family love story. What, it's the phoenix rising. It's what sort of rises from the ashes, and again, just an amazing story. I don't want to give
Thank
away the
you,
line
Dad.
by line plot either, but you know, so comedian Kevin Hart recommended this book for Tina, and what he said was, "You gotta read it." And there's nothing else to say about this book other than you gotta read it. It's a great story. It's well told. It's well written, Tina. What else? What other nuance would you like to share? I keep interrupting myself. So there is there is there, I want to share with everybody, like, there is a thing called like the Philadelphia writers movement. There are so many good writers that are coming out of Philadelphia telling Philadelphia stories. And Tina is certainly one of them. I think right away of Lorene Carey, the Price of a Child.
Mhm.
But there are so many others who are Philadelphia based. Philadelphia is a Black writer's haven. So anyone,
It is.
anytime you hear that a writer comes from Philadelphia, pick up the book, listen for what the story might be. If someone
That's
tells you here's a Philadelphia writer, then just turn to it. Tina
that Philly
is
soul, baby.
mhm,
Philly
it
soul. Philly has a rhythm to it.
mhm, it does, and it shows up in the writing. It shows up certainly in Tina's writing of Fish and Grits. What else can we say about this book? Because I'm half fan and half publisher here, so I can't say too much except that, Tina, if I found this book on the shelf, I would have picked it up. I would have bought it, and I would have been happy to have done that. Is this
One
what
of
else
the
do you
last
want to
things,
say?
well,
Because go ahead.
excuse me, one of the last things I want to say is that I really wrote this for all of the young people in Philadelphia who struggle, not just in Philadelphia, but any inner city community, to give them hope and give them purpose, to let them know that life can be a struggle. It often is a struggle for most of us. I came from struggle. I know what struggle is. This is my heart. This is Fair Hill was my heart. That's where I grew up. That's all I knew. It was my concrete jungle. And I got out. I still love the place though. I still ride past there and I love because it gave me this solid standard. So I came out knowing street and knowing how people do on the street, how they treat you, how they act, how you should react, how you should behave in certain neighborhoods. But then I came out with the opportunity to go to school and get degrees or whatever, and I found myself I can live in both neighborhoods and still be totally comfortable in both neighborhoods. And sometimes kids are afraid to step out. They think if they step out of their comfort zone, that they're not going to be able to remain attached to their community. And that's so far from being true. Kayla definitely was ready to step out. She would always remain attached to the neighborhood. It was just in her soul. She was born to it. And the neighborhood, they just they just enveloped her. They just loved her. And the neighbors just really did. And that's one of the things. I always try to make something a teaching, a lesson. And I want just really to be a teaching lesson to know that you can depend on other people, even when it seems like it's impossible and they can't be trusted. Sometimes the only thing you can do is take a chance and depend on other people.
Tell us how you got the Kevin Hart endorsement, because I have to believe that there isn't a writer, a aspiring writer, who would not want to have an endorsement from Kevin Hart.
It wasn't easy. it was definitely a chase down, and I definitely knew somebody who knew him. So it was definitely a chase down. He's a very busy man, of course, and that's like gold to have his name on something like that. But I'm
And
not going to necessarily say how I got it. I don't want people trying to, do the same thing. But I
right.
got it. That's all I'm going to
It,
say about
it,
that.
and it was an amazing endorsement because it was not just it was a video endorsement. It was not just, he wrote it out. He
Mhm.
actually went on camera and he said, you got to read this book.
And I've been so very grateful to him for it. But you know what? Kevin is from Philadelphia, and he's from North Philadelphia. And he has a lot of the same background that I had. His mother was a minister. My mother was a minister. So we came from a lot of the same places. We came from the same place. So he recognizes Philly in the book. He knows it's genuine Philly. It's nothing made up.
Hmm. A real Philadelphia
A
story.
real Philadelphia story.
Okay. So Tina, thank you so much for your writing. I know that you're working on other projects. I think you're working on a sequel to Fish and Grits.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
want to you want to share a little bit about that, or is it too soon to tell?
No, actually, I'm going to tell because then it'll keep me honest. Okay.
Mm,
And I'm halfway through it. It'll keep me honest to know, hey, you talked about this, you got to get it done. Um, the sequel is going to be about one of the twin brothers. And I really like this path. I like taking the story from the male point of view. And I actually had to struggle about what vision to take with this, who was going to be telling the story and whose words were going to actually be saying, repeating the story and telling it. And I finally hit it after many, many tries. And I'm really excited about this because a lot of the questions that I left open in Fish and Grits is going to be answered in Brother. And you'll have opportunity to see the male characters from a different point of view.
that's very good. I'm sort of anticipating a Cain and Abel kind of story.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, yes.
which is nice, and I know I'm letting the cat out the bag here, not so much because of what the story, I'm not talking about the plot of the story, but you know I personally have not read a Black Cain and Abel story that is really compelling, and for
Mhm.
how you write, I can hardly wait.
Oh, thank you, Max. Thank you so
Hmm.
much. I mean, really, it keeps me honest. You keep me honest because I know your background. I know the like I've always respected the Harlem Book Fair. I've been there. I've come to New York. I've seen all the different writers or whatever, and I see people out there working hard, trying to sell their books at the tables or whatever. And I know how hard it is to be a new writer and trying to get somebody interested in your work. So it is a huge honor to me that you feel this way about my book and that you were interested in my work. I mean, I'm very, very, very honored by that.
Thank you, Tina, but I tell you, if the book wasn't what it is, we wouldn't be talking now.
I know that's right. I know that's right because you don't do shabby. You don't do shabby. So I know that's right, and I respect it. I really respect.
Okay. That's great. So thank you everyone for taking the time to listen to Tina and I talk about her work, our work together, Fish and Grits. It is the launch book of the Harlem Book Fair imprint, Open Hand Press. Uh, but beyond that, it is the book. It is the story. It is the writer, and it is the book that will follow. So thank you, Tina, for your work.
Thank you,
Uh,
Max. Thank you
mhm.
very much.
Yeah, you're most welcome. Everyone, I'm Max Rodriguez, founder of the Harlem Book Fair, publisher of QBR, the Black Book Review, and you've been listening to an interview with Tina Smith Brown. Thank you.
Thank you.